Hello YouTube, hello my fans. Yes, it's once again you're in the ghengismaul zone, but this time you're in the ghengismaul history lesson zone. I decided for the first time ever, being a big, huge history buff as I am, to give my first video on well, a history lesson. This is actually one of history's greatest battles ever. Actually, it may not be as how can I say this battle may not be well known as D-Day or Stalingrad or Waterloo, but honest to God, for what it's worth, this battle really ranks up there as one is the biggest in history. And the battle I'm talking about, as you can see, is none other. This took place during the Middle Ages. This battle took place during the First Crusade. No, I'm sorry. I believe I'm sorry, I believe the Second Crusade, somewhere around between the First and Second Crusade, I believe. Um, it is called the Battle of Hattin, Hattin, Battle of Hattin. This battle occurred on Saturday, July 4th, 1187, between the Crusader Kingdom of Jerusalem and the forces of the Alubid dynasty. The Muslim armies were under Saladin, the great, Muslim leader Saladin, who captured or killed the vast majority of the Crusader forces in this battle, removing the capability to wage war. As a matter of fact, as a direct result of the Battle of Hattin, Islamic forces once again became the most powerful military power in the Holy Land. In fact, not too long after the Battle of Hattin, reconquering Jerusalem itself and several other Crusader-held cities. These Christian defeats prompted the Third Crusade, which began 2 years after the Battle of Hattin. Anyways, the location of this battle is the battle took place near Tiberias in present-day Israel. The battlefield near the town of Hattin as its chief geographic feature, a double hill, which is why they call it the Horns of Hattin. The double hills, besides a pass through the northern mountains between Tiberias and the road from Acre to the west, and there was one road built by the Romans, that served as a main east-west passage between the Jordan fords, the Sea of Galilee, and the Mediterranean coast. Anyway, before we talk about the battle itself, it would be, best to give you an idea of the politics of the time and the situation, what was going on. As I, mentioned before, this was around this, the second, after the Second Crusade, in the Middle Ages. And, of course, I'm sure most of you probably know what the Crusades were all about. In the Middle Ages, the popes, the Pope, told all the, Christian kingdoms and all the Christian knights and lords, that, if they wanted to reach salvation, they should retake Jerusalem, from the Muslim, armies. If they considered, that the birth of, the home of Jesus Christ, it wasn't right that, that the Muslim armies should be in control of it. So therefore began the Crusades. The first crusade was successful, and the Crusaders ended up taking Jerusalem. I believe. Forgive me, I'm a little. It's been a while since I did my crusade studying, but I believe the second crusade was just as successful. Again, taking more lands, and eventually Jerusalem was taken, which was probably one of the more important cities. Being the one of Christ is in Christianity one of the main important cities. So therefore establishing the kingdom of Jerusalem. Anyway, there was this one man. This man's name was Guy of Lusignan. Guy of Lusignan. Forgive me if I don't pronounce it right. Guy Lusignan, or King Guy, became king of Jerusalem in 1186 by right of his wife Sibylla. Anyway, at this time, the kingdom of Jerusalem was divided between, the court faction of Guy, Sibylla, and relative newcomers to the kingdom, such as Reynald of Chatillon as well as Gerard of Lightfoot and the Knights Templar. Um, and, and then there were like a whole bunch of other, noble factions led by Raymond III of Tripoli, who had, been regent for the child king, Baldwin V, and opposed the secession of Guy. So, you can see there's a lot of tension right here. This is one guy, Raymond of Tripoli. He, opposed, Guy's secession. And I don't want to get too into this, because you don't want to, take 5 hours to take this, to, explain this video. But basically, you have to understand around this time in, the Christian Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem, there was a lot of, as what, very common in the Middle Ages, there was a lot of hostility and jealousy and, tension and competition between, many feudal lords and many high-ranking feudal barons, princes, kings, nobles, whatever. And so, King Guy was king, but he had a lot of, guys who didn't want him to be king. And as a matter of fact, it's been said that King Guy took the kingdom while seducing Sibylla. By seducing Sibylla, he became the king that way. True bad boy, huh? Anyways, meanwhile, during this time, the Muslim states surrounding the kingdom had been united during the 1170s and 1180s by none other than Saladin. Saladin, I suppose that's how the better way to pronounce his name. Saladin was, without a shadow of doubt, one of the greatest Muslim military leaders ever. He had been appointed, Grand Vizier of Egypt in 1169 and soon came to rule the country as Sultan. In 1184, he imposed his rule over Damascus. His authority extended to Aleppo by 1186 and Mosul by 1183. So, for the first time, then the kingdom of Jerusalem was encircled by Muslim territory, united by one ruler. So, the Crusaders did defeat Saladin at the Battle of Montiscard in 1177, and in early 1180s there was an uneasy truce between the two sides. Yes, I know this for a fact. During the 1180s there was a temporary truce between the Christians, the Crusader states, and the Muslims. An uneasy truce. But this truce was eventually broken by the raids of Reynald on Muslim caravans, passing for his thief. Then Reynald actually, as a matter of fact, threatened to attack Mecca itself. So, as soon as Saladin received word that Reynald, by the way, it might be mentioned that Reynald, through he was, a knight, I believe a Templar knight, a so-called Christian knight. He was hardly displaying the rules of chivalry displayed for a lot of knights. He was not a chivalrous person. He basically stole, robbed, and raped. Always, slaughtered any Muslim he could, stealing from them. And it was through his dishonorable behavior, and by the raids of Rana that, actually broke the truce between, the Muslims and Christians. And as a matter of fact, there's a movie that, pretty much states all this. Is called The Kingdom of Heaven. Great movie. Same guy who was in the Pirates of the Caribbean. Very good movie, Kingdom of Heaven. But anyway, so when the guy became king, Reynald made a separate truce with Saladin in 1187, allowed the Sultan to send the army into the northern part of the kingdom. At the same time, an embassy was on the way to Jerusalem and Tripoli to negotiate a settlement between Raymond and Guy. The embassy was defeated at the Battle of Crescent on May 1st by a small force under the command of Ali Abbas. Raymond, racked with guilt, reconciled with Guy, who assembled an entire army of the kingdom and marched north to meet Saladin. So, let me see how much time. Okay, looks like 9 minutes have gone by. Yeah, there's a lot to cover here. Of course, me being a big history buff, I can go on and on and on, but believe me, I'm trying to summarize as much as I can. Because I haven't even got to the actual battle yet. This is all prelude. So, anyway, after reconciling, Raymond and Guy met at Acre with the bulk of the Crusader army. According to the claims of Southern European sources, it consisted of 1,200 knights, a greater number of lighter cavalry, and perhaps 10,000 foot soldiers, supplemented by crossbow by the Italian merchant fleet, and a large number of mercenaries in, a large number of mercenaries, donated to the kingdom by, Henry II of England, the relic of, and other things. As a matter of fact, also donated to the Christian Crusader forces was interesting, was a relic of the True Cross. Now, the True Cross was supposedly, I believe, from what I understand, a piece of wood from the actual, crucifix, the actual cross that Jesus Christ passed away on. That's right. The True Cross was none other than a piece of wood from the actual cross that Jesus Christ himself, died on. So you can imagine, to the Crusader, to all the Christians, that this relic was, held in very much high regard, very sacred. So remember, this is the True Cross. So anyway, July 2nd, Saladin, who wanted, now Saladin was a very clever military leader. And not always, was he a clever military leader, but he knew how to use the terrain to his advantage. You have to understand, where this is all taking place in the Middle East. There was so much desert, and the desert, there's a lot of, you probably know, can be very treacherous, particularly in the summer, because this is taking place in July in the desert. That's hot as fucking hell. Pardon my language. So, Saladin knew the desert very well. He knew how to use the terrain to his advantage much more. He knew how to use the terrain much more than the Crusader armies, who basically, were from Europe. So, on July 2nd, Saladin, who wanted to lure King Guy, into moving his army away from the springs of Saporia, personally led a siege of Raymond's fortress at Tiberias. This is another place, a fortress, Raymond's fortress, Tiberias, Tiberias. He was leading the siege of Tiberias while the main Muslim army remained at a nearby city. The garrison of Tiberias tried to pay Saladin off, but he refused, stating that, this is trickery, and they were not content with tribute. And I mean, after all, this was a holy war. This is a jihad, a holy war, and the Muslim armies under Saladin's, their main objective was to defeat the infidel crusaders and to take much of the Holy Land as possible. So anyways, so basically the siege went on at Tiberias. The fortress, fell very quickly. The fortress, fell very quickly. And when it fell, Saladin and his troops stormed the breach, killing the opposing forces and taking prisoners. Now, holding out, Raymond's wife, Escheva, I believe, was besieged in the citadel. As the mining was begun on that structure, news was received by Saladin that King Guy himself is moving the Frank army east. The Crusaders had taken the bait. Now, this is very interesting. I'm going to get to this in a minute. I just want to, finish, saying a few more things. But King Guy's decision to lead the safety of the defenses was the result of a Crusader War Council held the night of July 2nd. Three reports of what happened at the meeting are biased due to personal feuds among the Franks. It seems that Raymond argued that a march from Acre to Tiberias was exactly what Saladin wanted, while Saporia was a strong position for the Crusaders to defend. Furthermore, Guy shouldn't worry about Tiberias, which Raymond held personally and was willing to give up for the safety of the kingdom. In response to this argument, and despite the reconciliation, internal court politics remained strong. Raymond was accused of cowardice by Gerard and Reynard. Raymond was accused of cowardice by Gerard and Reynard. The latter influenced Guy to attack immediately. And okay, anyway. Looks like I'm almost out of time, so I'm going to have to start with part two. Part two continue.